I never thought I'd be here, but life has a funny way of slapping you in the face when you least expect it. My name's Mark, 52 years old, and I've been married to Lisa for 28 years. We've got 2 adult kids, both married with their own families, and honestly, I thought we were that perfect family. You know the type. Big Sunday dinners, family holidays, the works. I never once suspected any of us would be the type to cheat. In fact, we prided ourselves on being role models for the kids when it came to relationships. But life had other plans for me, apparently. Everything changed one random day when I forgot my passport at home. I dropped by during work hours to grab it, and that's when things started feeling off. The bed in our room had been freshly made, neatly, like it hadn't just been slept in. Now, I'm not a neat freak, but that bed definitely wasn't like that when I left. And then, I saw the shower. Wet. As if someone had just stepped out of it. My mind did a quick spin. Lisa was supposed to be at work, just like me. No one else lived in the house. I thought maybe she came home for lunch and freshened up, but still, it felt strange. But here's the thing. I trusted Lisa completely. We'd been together for nearly 3 decades, and I brushed it off. Maybe I'm paranoid, I thought. Still, just to ease my mind, I decided to install some cameras around the house. Not because I actually thought anything was happening, more like a joke to myself. A little entertainment, thinking I'd catch absolutely nothing. I had no idea how wrong I was. A few days later, I'm sitting at my desk at work, not thinking much about anything when my phone buzzes. It's a notification from the cameras. There's movement in the house. Now, it's a workday, and no one's supposed to be home. My first reaction is to assume it's a glitch, or maybe the cat knocked something over. But, out of curiosity, I pull up the live feed, expecting to see an empty room. What I didn't expect was to see Lisa, my wife of 28 years, walking into our bedroom with some guy. Some guy I had never seen before in my life. My stomach dropped, and I froze, watching in real time as they tore each other's clothes off like a couple of horny teenagers. And then, right there, in our bed, they started having sex. Passionate, frantic, no-holds-barred sex. I nearly fell out of my chair. My heart was racing, my hands shaking. I couldn't breathe. Was this really happening? Was this Lisa, the woman I'd built a life with, the one who told me every day that she loved me? I sat there, stunned, trying to process the fact that my wife was screwing another man in the bed we shared for nearly 3 decades. I don't know what came over me, but I grabbed my stuff, bolted out of the office, and raced home. The whole drive, my mind was going 100 miles an hour. Anger, confusion, disbelief. But one thing was clear. I was going to catch them in the act. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I had one thing on my mind: revenge. I had a can of pepper spray in my glove compartment, something I always kept for emergencies. And this felt like an emergency. I stormed into the house, heart pounding, and when I opened the bedroom door, there they were. Still naked, still all over each other. Without thinking, I pulled out the pepper spray and went to town. They screamed, flailing around like they were on fire, and I just stood there, watching them squirm in pain. Lisa's face was a mix of shock and horror. She saw me standing there, the spray can still in my hand, and she knew she was caught. I didn't say a word. I just turned around, walked out of the house, and got into my car. As I drove off, I called an ambulance for them, because as much as I hated them in that moment, I didn't want anyone actually dying on my watch. I didn't go back home that night. Honestly, I didn't even know what I would say if I did. I checked into a hotel, let the adrenaline wear off, and just sat there, staring at the wall. It was like my whole life had turned upside down in a matter of hours. The woman I had spent nearly 3 decades with, raising kids, going through ups and downs, had been lying to me, screwing some random guy in our bed. The next morning, I filed for divorce. I didn't want to see Lisa, didn't want to hear her excuses, nothing. But of course, life doesn't let you off that easy. She started blowing up my phone with calls and texts. At first, I ignored them, but after a couple of days, I figured I'd have to face her eventually, so I agreed to meet her. We sat down at a neutral spot, a coffee shop where neither of us would feel too comfortable. She looked different. Not the confident, fiery Lisa I'd known for so long. She looked guilty, like a kid caught stealing candy from the store. And that pissed me off even more. The moment we sat down, she started crying. Not even subtle tears, full-on, dramatic waterworks. "Mark, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake." "A mistake? Right. Because slipping into bed with someone else and having sex is an accident." I didn't say anything at first, just watched her flounder, trying to come up with more excuses. She went on about how she felt neglected, how she thought I wasn't paying enough attention to her, and how this guy, Mike, she said his name was, just made her feel special. Like that was supposed to make it better. When I finally spoke, I kept it short and to the point. "You didn't think I'd find out, did you?" She hesitated, then admitted, I thought I could stop before you knew. I didn't think it would get this far." Right. So she wasn't sorry about cheating, she was sorry she got caught. Typical Lisa, always twisting things to make herself look like the victim. And then she hit me with the classic, "It didn't mean anything. It was just sex." At that point, I laughed. Because how ridiculous is that? Just sex. As if the betrayal didn't matter because it wasn't emotional. It was as if she thought that would make me forgive her on the spot. "You threw away 28 years for some meaningless sex?" I asked, my voice steady, though inside, I was boiling. She cried harder, begged for me to give her another chance. Promised it wouldn't happen again. But I wasn't buying it. Not this time. I stood up, ready to leave. "We're done, Lisa. I've already filed for divorce." Her face went pale. She didn't expect that. She thought I'd yell, scream, maybe hit a wall, anything but leave her. And that's when I knew I had made the right choice. Walking away from that coffee shop should have felt empowering, but the truth is, it left me feeling empty. Like something inside me had been ripped out, and there was just this gaping hole where our life used to be. I drove around aimlessly for hours after that, replaying everything in my head. Every memory, every holiday, every quiet night we'd spent together. How did we go from that to this? How had I been so blind? The betrayal hit me like a ton of bricks. It wasn't just the fact that she cheated, that was bad enough, but it was the lies. The fact that she could come home, look me in the eye, tell me she loved me, and then sneak around behind my back with another man. The coldness of it, the complete disregard for what we'd built together, left me feeling more hurt than angry. I started questioning everything. Was our whole marriage a lie? Had she always been like this, and I just didn't see it? Or worse, had I done something to push her into his arms? It was like my brain went into overdrive, trying to make sense of something that just couldn't be explained. 4 days, I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was with him now, laughing about how they'd gotten away with it for so long. The humiliation was unbearable. Our friends, our kids, they all thought we had this perfect marriage. What would they think when they found out? And the kids? Oh, that was the worst part. I had to call them, explain what had happened, and watch as their faces dropped in disbelief. My daughter, Emily, cried. She didn't understand how the mother she looked up to could do something like this. And my son, Jake? He was furious. How could she? After all you've done for her, for us. I didn't have an answer. I didn't understand it any better than they did. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same again. It was like grief. The life I had known, the future I had imagined, it all died that day. And I was left mourning it, trying to figure out how to move forward when everything felt so broken. After a week of wallowing in confusion, anger, and sadness, I realized something. I couldn't keep drowning in this mess. The betrayal had already taken enough from me. It had taken my marriage, my sense of security, and my peace of mind. I wasn't going to let it take my future, too. So, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Lisa weasel her way back into my life. I was done with her excuses, her tears, and her pathetic attempts to make this my fault. The paperwork for the divorce was already in motion, but emotionally, I needed to cut ties with her, for good. No more phone calls, no more pity parties, no more letting her drag me back into the chaos she'd created. I called my lawyer, made sure everything was in order, and then I blocked her number. I didn't want to hear another word from her. Not about how sorry she was, not about how it was a moment of weakness. Nothing. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. Then there was the house. I couldn't stay there. Every corner, every room. It reminded me of the life we once had, and it was too much. So I sold it. Sold the place where we raised our kids, where we had countless family gatherings, where I thought we'd grow old together. It hurt like hell, but I knew I needed a fresh start, somewhere far from the ghosts of our past. The kids were supportive, but I could tell they were shaken. Seeing their parents' marriage fall apart after nearly 3 decades made them question everything. But they stood by me, helped me pack up my things, and even offered to let me stay with them for a while. I appreciated it, but I needed space. I needed to figure out what my life was going to look like without her in it. So, I moved to a new city, got transferred for work, rented a small apartment, and started rebuilding. It wasn't easy. Some days I'd wake up and wonder if I was in some kind of nightmare. But little by little, I started to feel like myself again. The sadness lingered, but the anger faded, and eventually, so did the pain. I wasn't the same man I was before this happened, but in a strange way, I felt stronger. I had survived the worst betrayal of my life, and I was still standing. It's been a few months since I walked away from the life I thought I'd be living forever. I won't sugarcoat it, things still hurt sometimes. There are moments when I'll catch myself thinking about her, about us, and for a split second, it all feels like a bad dream I'll wake up from. But then reality sets in, and I remember who she really was beneath the surface, the woman who betrayed me, who threw away 28 years for something as meaningless as a fling. But here's what I've learned: betrayal doesn't define you. It's a blow, yeah, but it doesn't have to break you. I've rebuilt myself piece by piece, rediscovering who I am without Lisa and without the weight of the past dragging me down. As for her, well, I don't really know what's going on in her life, and honestly, I don't care. The last time we had any contact was when the divorce papers were signed. She tried to give me some final apology, but I didn't stick around to listen. I just wanted to close that chapter, and that's exactly what I did. If there's anything I can pass on to those reading this, it's this: trust your gut. If something feels off, don't ignore it. I should have listened to myself the day I found that wet shower, but I let my blind trust in her cloud my judgment. Also, know your worth. No one deserves to be treated the way I was, and if someone betrays you, don't let them drag you down with their excuses and lies. Walk away with your head held high. I'm in a better place now, mentally, emotionally, and physically. I've reconnected with old friends, thrown myself into work, and even started traveling. Life goes on, and I'm finding that there's a lot more out there for me beyond the life I once knew. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, stay strong. It gets better, I promise. You'll come out the other side, and when you do, you'll realize just how much stronger you are than you ever thought possible. Thank you for visited my YouTube channel. Your support, likes, and comments truly inspire me to create even more engaging content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You're a part of this amazing community, and I'm thrilled to share my stories with you. See you in the next video on YouTube.